Good morning and welcome to Mecca Live here on Wednesday morning, August 19th, 2020. We are going to continue with our this week's theme, public news and private news. Today's topic is masks, facades, and other plasticware. We mentioned earlier in the week that this topic is designed to address the things that we not knowing when to share information, but specifically the two categories, public and private news. And I explained how we arrived at that theme for the week. So today's topic is really going to continue to unpack the piece that we talked about yesterday, how um, not sharing, holding secrets, specific secrets, can be detrimental to our health. And so, with masks, facades, and other plasticware, we're looking at um, when things are kept private, right? Keep it when keeping things private, keep us from progressing, keep us from resolving our issues and addressing different things that need to be addressed and resolved, right? So when we look at that, sometimes, and this is specifically for the people and the times, you may not have been the one to say this, but you may have been on the receiving end of, well, let's not talk about that because that makes us look bad. So this topic specifically with the masks and the facades and other plasticware, things that so that we appear a certain way. And when we do that, we dismiss the significance of the issue and we negate the ability to process it. That's on the surface, that's big. But think about it as it relates to children who don't have the capacity at the time to navigate around, well, we'll talk about this at home, or this may not be the place or the time to address this, or we can address it um, in a limited format and then give further detail when we get home or get to another setting. When we stop the conversation, or when we say no, right, or when we shut it down, if we don't process that with them, they'll feel like or interpret it as it being shut down, period. So now I can't talk about that thing. So they associate the situation, the response, and how it made them feel with that topic. That's why this is crucial. So masks, facades, and other plasticware. Um, when we have these kinds of behaviors and we participate in this kind of situation, um, we create an environment that is prone to or lends itself easy to become an environment of codependency and all of that. When we think about codependency, we think about the poor boundaries. We think about I can't if you can't, and this combination, this attachment, this connection that's not a healthy one, right? To where accountability and responsibility is misplaced, and then it continues to foster a situation and an environment that's not healthy for any of the people involved. Lack of self care, etc. So let's backpedal a little bit. Um, with Mecca, making engaging community connections accessible, we like to make sure that if there's resources available in the community, whether it's an article, whether it's an organization, an event, we like to make sure that you know that. Um, I want to be clear though that this week is kind of, like I mentioned before, this is a week that we presented several weeks ago but didn't get to finish it. So I've kind of combined it all. So it's going to be kind of condensed. But as we progress, you'll hear certain themes repeat, and you'll get to a place where you're like, oh, okay, I remember hearing that. I remember her saying that. So back to the topic, our priorities really need to. Our priorities tend to reflect our values, and if we say that life is valuable, we appreciate this, we want this, but then we're not doing anything to secure it or not doing anything to maintain it, then at what point is that real? At what point do we get to a place where this is she really does like this, or she really does appreciate that, or he really is invested in that, and he really wants that. I can tell by what, right? But like I said yesterday, we have one body, one. It would behoove us to take care of it. But taking care of it means also understanding it. I'm not gonna. It's the doctor. I don't do myself any justice if I don't feel quite right. So I go to the doctor, but I don't tell him everything. So he doesn't have all the information, all the necessary information to be able to diagnose me. She may not be able to run the proper tests that will give the information necessary um, to promote my recovery or my health if I don't give them all the information. So ignoring things, calling it a foo-foo name, or giving it a derogatory term, and I'm gonna get into that in a second, serves no practical purpose, right? Um, I remember the commercial. I forget what the medicine was, but it was an antidepressant medication. And in the commercial, the lady is going about her business, and she's taking her forever to get out of bed, and she got her clothes on, and she's walking through, um, walking. I forget where she's outside. I don't know where she was going. If she was going into a business, if she was making her way to a car, you couldn't really see that. You just saw her walking down the sidewalk, and she had this sign in her hand. It was like a cutout of her face, like a piece of paper with a smiley face. And she's just going about her business. And when someone looked at her or spoke to her, she put that up and waved, right? So, um, so many of us are hiding. So many of us are suffering in silence. So many of us are dealing with these very issues. I don't want to go out today. I don't want to get up today. And please understand, I'm not suggesting or promoting a lazy lifestyle, but so often that term is used to serve as a label to categorize people based upon behavior that people don't really understand, based on less than all the facts, right? I mean, think it was like probably 3 or 4 months ago, in one of the segments on learning modalities, I talked about gifted students, and I mentioned about someone I was talking to. Actually, we weren't talking; she was talking to somebody else, and she kept going on and on about how lazy her child was, academically lazy. And so I'm listening, minding my business, but not minding my business, right? So I think I was doing something, but I was listening because I was like, I think this kid is gifted. Like, so I'm listening to what she's saying, and everything just pointed to gifted. Everything pointed to gifted. Everything pointed to gifted. But if you don't understand gifted, it's going to look lazy. If you don't understand um, anxiety, it's going to look crazy. If you don't understand um, depression, it's going to look a certain way, right? And no shade on the parent. Like if you don't know, you don't know. And so that's what we do. Our brains gravitate toward patterns and an association of things that we've experienced or seen. So if this looks like that, and I don't have any foreknowledge, of this, it could actually be that. But if the only things I have at my disposal are lazy, and that looks like that, then so she kept talking. And I said, "Excuse me, can I ask a question?" Yes. So I asked a series of questions. And at the end of it, I said, I don't mean to step out of line, but I don't think that your child is lazy. I think your child is gifted. Gifted? What do you mean? I was able to explain it. And they were like, oh my goodness, I hadn't thought about that. So then we went into that conversation. But um, a lot of times we hide. We hide behind the mask like the lady in the commercial. Um, and if it's not us and we're not sure what we're seeing, we just assign a label to it instead of doing due diligence to be able to accurately define and describe what's going on, but then also know how to deal with it, right? So a lot of times we hide behind masks um, because it's hard to explain. It's hard to explain to someone who doesn't have anxiety what it feels like to have anxiety. It's hard to explain to someone who's never been depressed or not has never been diagnosed with depression or anxiety. It's hard to explain to someone who has zero problems concentrating, but you can't. It's hard. Um, but then, likewise, it's hard for people to understand that. And so a lot of times, that's when the labels come. Sometimes it's hard to explain. Sometimes we don't address it, we don't recognize it, we don't talk about it because we're afraid of retribution. We don't want certain people to know. Here come the name calling, here comes the emotional bullying, right? Um, Sometimes we're just private. And then sometimes it has been these different types of issues and situations have been so maligned either by people that we've known or growing up in our families, how we've just that was cousin so and so, they just crazy. Well, I relate to cousin so and so. Like they we are so that means I'm crazy. So these associations that are made inaccurately set the tone and stage for our families and our children to repeat the same. That lack of awareness. So awareness is not just I have this or I deal with this or I'm confronted by this, but also being able to recognize it in my family and friends, because the best advocates oftentimes are the people that are not affected by the situation, because for whatever reason, well, I know the reason, but oftentimes if I'm if I'm in that situation, if I'm surviving this thing, it's going to look like I'm just talking or I'm going off, running off at the mouth about whatever. But when it's someone that's not related to it, has no is not involved or it doesn't struggle with the thing, a lot of times they have a sphere of influence. They have this voice that amplifies my issue. So being aware of my own, being aware of those around me, but understanding what I'm looking at. Wearing masks, having facades, and other plasticware. I keep saying the title because I want to make sure you guys remember it. This serves no purpose for that. And so if my mom is struggling, if my dad is struggling, if my siblings are struggling, and I just, oh, that's just who they are. We're at a place where we're talking about lives that matter. We're talking about justice that needs to be served. We're talking about being able to live a life free from, because living in freedom has many pieces. Living a life in freedom also means being free from certain things, free from different types of brutality, free from different types of mistreatment, free from different types of discrimination, just free from all that. And then we come right home and oftentimes do the exact same thing because we don't understand it, or because we're tired, or because the situation is inconvenient. What's my point? My point is this: there's private news. There are things that are best kept within the family in the sense of issues or circumstances or things like that. But private inside the family, when it comes to it arrives at a place of um, destruction, and it keeps us from seeking the very treatment that we need or resolution that we need. Because maybe it's not a thing of mental health or mental stability. Maybe I'm holding a grudge and I need to resolve that. And nobody really knows why. Maybe something's happened that needs to be resolved. And no, we haven't talked about that. Remember, yesterday's topic was don't tell your mother. Because we know that a lot of times, some of these relationships and some of these childhood traumas happen within the family. So maybe it's a family member that says, don't tell your mother. So now you're conflicted, and you're a child. I remember saying yesterday that children are little people, so they don't just arrive at this place. They don't have that, their birthdays don't come in chronological order, and then at a certain tick mark, they just arrive at being an adult. No, they have to be groomed and taught that. They need to be taught and instructed on how to appreciate all of them, which includes their mental capacity, not just the academic piece, but their mental and emotional well being. They have a right to have feelings, they have a right to be heard, they have a right to be dealt with dignity and respect. That doesn't change the expectation of obedience at all. If anything, it meters how we as a parent or we as a teacher merge the two. Because ultimately, we have the baton, keeping the rhythm, keeping the pace of how we want to this obedience, what we want it to look like, how it should be, how it's applicable either in the classroom or at home, but helping them navigate through times and space and situations, emotions, whatever. That requires instruction. That requires nurturing. That requires guidance. It's going to be hard for us to do that if we don't have a clear understanding of what that is for ourselves, right? So back to the topic. Um, if we ignore and cover up these different types and these different aspects of dysfunction, it serves no practical purpose. And I get it. I get it because I can think about in my own family. Um, the people in my own family that struggled with substance abuse, the people in my own family that had different types of mental health issues, mental health disorders, um, and some of them that went untreated because of what it was. She just that. She just crazy. That person over here. Da, 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 da. Well, no, we don't have any mental health issues. Meanwhile, I'm looking like, cousin so and so is blah blah blah, right? You know that this leads to this, and no, that's that other stuff. So when we look at the role of culture, whether it's your religious or spiritual culture, whether it's your ethnicity or place of origin, that culture, if it's the culture inside your own family, right? At some point, we have to get to the place where we decide to look at ourselves face to face in the mirror. We decide to take a deep look at who we really are. And at some point say, okay, I'm going to explore this, and whatever I see is going to be okay. Because then that takes the out of it, right? If it's not okay, then what? Then you fix it. So it's okay. So I'm gonna look at myself. What are the things that make me that cause me to become angry? What are the things that cause me to become sad? What are the things that I really like? What are the things that I really don't like? Right? What are the things that I'm good at? What are the things that I can improve at? What are they? And then ask yourself why. Why don't I like that? Why? Because remember earlier I said our priorities reflect our values. And when we talk about priorities, we talk about the order in which we value different things, the order of importance. Also, priority has that, brings in our time, brings in our money, brings in these different things. Because if it's a priority, I'm gonna save for it. If it's a priority, I'm gonna get up in time for it. If it's that important to me, I'm gonna make it happen. I'm gonna do what I need to do to make it happen. So what's the point? The point is we have one life. And many of us have been entrusted with little lives that look up to us, whether they're our own children, whether we teach, coach, whatever the case may be. That's the point. We need to get it together so that we can guide them along the way. Otherwise, we'll continue to have a society of drones, just to keep it real. I turn on the TV and I watch the commercials and whatever. I'm thinking that would make somebody want to get that. And I recognize I'm different. I've been told that since I was a small child. Let me use that for an example. I recognize that I'm different. And I recognize it because I wasn't like other people, right? I didn't think like I'm telling you stuff that was told to me since I was little. You don't think like everybody else. I don't understand what's going on in your head. I heard that all the time. Again, what's wrong with me? So I'm like, it doesn't have to be wrong because it's different, right? But I grew up thinking something's wrong with me. I don't understand what's happening. Like I remember, I just told my friend's daughter this over the weekend. I think it was over the weekend that I remember being, I think I was like 7. I think I was 7 the very first time I did this, and I did it at least 3 times I can remember. I remember pulling out the family album and really looking at the faces because I was like, if I'm that different, and understand I heard it on a regular basis, the way I thought, my perspective, my outlook was just so different um, that it really started to get me to thinking. So I pull out the family album, I'm looking at the faces, I'm looking and looking, looking, I'm like, am I really? If I'm that different, let me see if I really look like these folks. At 7, I remember doing that because it wasn't like in Zynga. That's a different way of looking at that. I never would have considered that. I don't get it. I don't agree, but that's different. Different is one thing. But when we use our language and we communicate to children um, that different is bad, then they kind of close in. And if enough people say it, or the people that say it enough times, that's what's going to stay in their head, and it'll pop up at different times or just keep playing, and it will help shape their self identity. It'll help shape their self concept. It'll help shape their self confidence, one way or the other. So what's my point? My point is, I need to get my stuff together so that I can make sure that my kids have their stuff together. That includes me looking at myself and seeing all the parts. The stuff that's cute, the stuff that's not so cute. The stuff that I do well, the stuff I don't do well. Because in so doing, that's my map. Now I know where to go. Now I know where I am. I know where to start from, and I know how to get where I need to be. But continuing to hold masks, continuing to hide and pretend that these things don't exist, to pretend that child abuse doesn't happen, that incest doesn't happen, right? Trafficking isn't happening. That ADD is not an issue. That depression is not an issue. That anxiety is not an issue. That post-traumatic stress disorder and post-traumatic stress syndrome is not an issue. And understand that post-traumatic stress disorder and post-traumatic stress syndrome are not relegated to people that have been in horrible accidents or seen war. And we've come to this place where I'm going to talk about trauma probably next week. We're going to talk about different types of trauma. But we've come to this place where trauma has to be this horrific thing that happened. It's not the thing that happened, it's the impact of what happened that makes a thing traumatic. And then we've come to we continue to evolve to this place where, well, I don't think that wasn't that bad for you. For you. The same event, the same family, the same situation can affect every different person, every single person in that was exposed to or experienced it differently because they're different. That's it. There's no right, there's no wrong. It just is what it is. And I find that when we ignore it completely or disparage it, either one leaves the person in a space that precludes them from getting the treatment that they need or even talking about it. I want to say this really quick. I'm going to use teeth for an example. So we know we need to brush our teeth because our breath will smell bad, right? But beyond that is oral health. You brush your teeth, floss your teeth. Some people have a water pick, which is great. So there's a lot of different oral routines, right? Some people brush with baking soda and then toothpaste or whatever we do. But the point is, we need to keep our teeth clean. That means in between our teeth. That means the surface of our teeth. That means our gums. Why? Because if I go a couple days without brushing my teeth, the worst case scenario will be that my breath will smell really bad. But if that's a pattern, even if it's not consistent, if it's a intermittent pattern, then the overall health of my teeth is going to deteriorate. Just because I don't brush my teeth today, I lose a tooth tomorrow. This instant situation, we're so used to that. But when we don't see it, when we don't hear it, when we don't feel it, when we don't smell it, if it's not assaulting our senses, sometimes we just forget completely about it. Back to the teeth, though. Let that progress. And then something starts to happen. Well, scratch that. We begin to see something happening. Because the breakdown and the decay starts long before we even see it or feel it or recognize it. What am I saying? If we have our routine dental checkups, we can catch things ahead of time. But before the checkup, if we're taking good care of our teeth, we have a system, we have a ritual, we have a process in place, right? Those checkups are be inexpensive because it'll just be like, oh, okay, no cavities, no whatever. We'll just clean, where you can't get to, right? But it won't be even that long because we've done our work. We take care of our car. We take it in for the month, the 6 month and whatever. Hardly anything to do, right? Change the filters or whatever. But when we haven't been consistent, then we have cavities. And cavities can grow into root canals. Root canals can go into lost teeth. And then gum disease. What's my point? My point is depression is real. My point is ADD and ADHD is real. Anxiety is real. OCD is real. And oppositional defiant disorder is real. And let me just say this real quick. And I've identified this video as one that's not, you can let your kids listen to it if you want to, but I'm going to say a bad word. When people say oppositional defiant disorder, They just bad kids. Is that really true? Do kids just come out bad? Or is it a situation where it's been a where it's an evolution, right? So if I'm not metering this behavior, if I'm not taking care of instruction as it relates to the behavior of the child, then what do you think is going to happen at the end of it? Not to mention, that doesn't dismiss the fact that at some point our children make decisions for themselves. They do. What's the point? We can't pretend that these things don't happen. We can't pretend that these things aren't going on. We can't pretend and hide and put on this facade, because at the point when we decide that how we look is more important, the reputation of the family name in the community is more important than making sure that our kids have what they need to be successful, have what they need to be healthy, then we are at the helm of their destruction. That's on us. That's not an answer. That's not a call that I want to answer. Um, but let's move on to our at-home work. So what I would like you to do is five points, 5 steps. Think of a mental health disorder or diagnosis that you least agree with. And when I ask people this, they said, I don't believe ADD exists. I just think that, the kids have energy and they just need to understand and they need to stay focused. Okay. Now, am I saying, do I think that a lot of times they're misdiagnosed? Absolutely. But to say that it's not out there, okay. So I'm gonna use that as an example. So first thing is identify a mental health disorder that you don't agree with. Why? Write out why, or just ponder why. You don't have to write it out, but ponder why. Why is that? Or you least agree with. And then check out the next 2 points is explore the literature or articles or whatever that support that exists. And then the other part is check out some information that support that it does. So it does and it doesn't. Read, kind of explore some information on both sides, and then reevaluate. Do you agree or disagree? And then why? There's no wrong answer. I'm asking you what you agree with and how this thing resonates with you. Because at the end of the situation, it really doesn't matter much whether you agree with me or not. It doesn't matter if you agree with the people around you. What I'm trying to get us to is a place where we understand why we view what we view and why we hold the views that we have, and how we arrive at these conclusions. Because regurgitating information that our parents said, or regurgitating information that our teachers said, regurgitating information that the pastor said, and I'm not putting those people down. I'm saying that we do ourselves a disservice when we just regurgitate information without any individual exploration. At this point, in the digital age, where a great deal of information is at our fingertips, that's not okay anymore. We no longer get a pass on that. So that's your at home work. I want to let you know that when we come back on tomorrow, our topic, we're going to continue the theme of public news, private news, and then the topic tomorrow will be home training hologram. And we'll be talking about, I don't want to give it away. Home training is a phrase that many people of color use. I know I'm African American, so that's something we always talk. Don't go out here and act like you don't have a home training. So we're going to talk about that tomorrow, and as it relates to public news and private news, because sometimes we see things and we wish that parents would hold that private, right? And then sometimes, as it relates to parent, child, and parenting, sometimes we're in public settings or in private settings, and we're like, what just happened? Oh, wow, that was really good. So we're going to explore that tomorrow. Continuing on with the topic, the theme of this week, public news, private news, and tomorrow's topic is home training hologram. I hope you have a wonderful day. Be kind to yourself that you may be kind to others, and as always, speak life.